Just so you all know, federal law does not require test scores to determine eligibility, to determine disability, and it never has. So this is going back to 1997, that first reauthorization, and then of course 2004. New York State does not require the use of standardized test scores or age equivalency scores to determine disability. Now here you may think, yeah, but they do it, but they make me. All right. You're a professional. You're given the right to do these evaluations. What we need to do as professionals is say, I can't do it that way. And actually, as I said, I was doing lots of evaluations before I was at Teachers College, Columbia University, before I had my PhD, and people listened because really we're in this for the children. We might have lost track somewhere along the way, and sort of the policies, laws, regs are bringing us back on track. So why do we do preschool evaluations? What exactly are we trying to do? One of the things we're trying to do is to distinguish a true disability from something else. And the federal law says very specifically that you have to be careful not to have a disproportionate referral of minority children for special education. We've got it in New York City. We're trying to address it. Part of this work, a major part of this work, is to address that. Now, in the front of the law, I told you I was a lawyer, so I do love the law. In the front of the law are the congressional findings. And the congressional findings help us really understand what the language of the law really means, what the language of the law says. So here we have the Congress at the front of the law says, here's what we found and why we wrote the law the way we did. So one of the things they say is studies, there's discrepancies in an over and under referral of English language learners for special education. Meaning some people say, oh, we don't want to refer them. No, let them develop. And others are saying, we've got to get them in special education. Neither of those positions is accurate. Congress says at the front of the law, these discrepancies over and under referral pose a special challenge for the special education referral of and assessment of our English language learners. What about for children, minority children? At the front of the law, it also says, greater efforts are needed to prevent the intensification of problems connected with mislabeling and high dropout rates among minority children with disabilities. More minority children continue to be served in special education than would be expected from the percentage of minority students in special education. So we're not doing so well in terms of identifying which minority children have a disability and which don't. What we're saying is, we're giving them the test, they all come out disabled, most of them come out as disabled, they're disabled. Obviously that's not the case. But Cate, aren't special education services like chicken soup? They couldn't hide. Just give them a little speech, a little OT, a little this. It couldn't hurt, right? Well, they do hurt. Let's have a look. What's wrong? What happens to a child when they get an IEP? Mislabeling, if the child doesn't have a disability, it creates a false impression of the child's intelligence and academic potential. Once children are receiving special education, they tend to remain in special education classes. And those of us who participate in the Turning 5 process know how few children actually don't end up without an IEP when they start kindergarten if they had an IEP at the preschool level. Students are likely to encounter a limited, less rigorous curriculum. Lower expectation can lead to diminished academic and post-secondary opportunities, and students in special education programs can have less access to academically able peers. There's enormous effect on this child. Think of how you would feel, and maybe you have a child with a disability. If your child had a disability, what happens to your thought process? And what if that child really didn't have a disability and was inappropriately identified and labeled by an evaluator who didn't use best practices in the assessment process? So who is a child with a disability? In New York State, to be eligible for either EI or preschool services, A child must be identified by a 12-month delay, performance greater than 2 standard deviations below the mean in one area, or 1.5 standard deviations below the mean in 2 areas, a 25% delay or greater in 2 areas, or a 33% delay or greater in 1 area. Just so you know, where I'm working in and where I've worked in since 1995 at least is 25% delay, mild to moderate, 33% delay, moderately severe to severe. So how can we possibly qualify a preschooler for services if we can't use a single standard score, percentile ranks, or age equivalencies? Right? What do you expect us to pull a rabbit out of a hat, Cate? So I'm asking for patience. I promise we will get there. I promise.